President Trump and climate change are in the news tonight.
Yeah, he has long dismissed it and even called it a hoax. But tonight, every major department of the federal government issued a warning that human activity is warming the planet, directly contradicting the president. KCAL9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with the findings and the political fallout that might follow.
It's pretty amazing, and these agencies did not mince words. Let me tell you, it's like the agencies versus the president. You don't see that happen very often. Even as President Trump is heading to Asia tonight, a hard-hitting, scathing report released by more than a dozen federal government agencies shoots down almost everything the president has said and done on environmental issues, especially on the issue of climate change. A new report on climate change was released by federal agencies on Friday, concluding that it's unambiguous that human activities are the dominant cause of global warming, resulting in the warmest period in the history of civilization. Senior research scientist and University of Washington professor Sarah Doherty is one of the lead authors of the report.
I think the most important thing about it is that it reaffirms and really strongly adds further evidence to the conclusion that climate is changing. It's happening at a rapid pace, and human beings are the cause, principally through the emission of greenhouse gases. The evidence is really quite overwhelmingly compelling at this point. There really is no question remaining.
The report by 13 federal agencies concludes that the impact of global warming is being felt right now, creating higher temperatures and even some extreme weather events, and declares that there is no convincing alternative explanation. But that's not how President Trump sees it, like this during the 2016 campaign.
Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
In fact, the president has a long history of challenging scientific findings on climate change, like his suggestion in 2012 that the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive.
I do not believe that climate change is a hoax.
And while the EPA administrator may appear to disagree with the president on climate change, he says he doesn't believe it's caused by human activities.
I think that measuring with precision human activity on the climate is something very challenging to do, and there's tremendous disagreement about the degree of impact.
The report just released concludes many lines of evidence demonstrate that human activities, especially emissions of greenhouse, heat-trapping gases, are primarily responsible for recent observed climate changes.
I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
In June, President Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, the global agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The president said it was done to protect American jobs and added that he would protect the environment, too, at the same time.
We're going to have the cleanest air. We're going to have the cleanest water. We will be environmentally friendly. But we're not going to put our businesses out of work.
I believe that we should be making decisions based on best knowledge possible. What's frustrating is when people are choosing to ignore what is clear evidence.
The president seems to take delight in upsetting environmentalists by doing things like this.
California Republican strategist Reed Galen says, politically speaking, the president doesn't have much to lose by opposing environmental policies, since those issues are not very important to his base support.
But the thing that he does do well is fire up that 35 or 40% of the country that absolutely loves him and drives the 60% or so of the country that doesn't like him absolutely into orbit with just about everything he says.
One of the president's arch enemies on the global warming issue is California Governor Jerry Brown. Brown's headed to Europe to talk about climate change. His 11-day trip will include stops at the Vatican and the United Nations conference in Germany. He's promised to help the U.S. reduce emissions as President Trump pulls from the International Climate Accord.
This is serious stuff. This is not a game. This is not appealing to your political base. This is dealing with the existential threats to humanity.
Now, today's report also documented how a combination of climate change repercussions can result in disastrous outcomes. For example, while you can't necessarily attribute any single event to climate change, the report says the impact of the drought and much hotter temperatures can certainly escalate the wildfire season in California to much more dangerous levels, kind of like what we've seen this year. Jeff, Lena?